the bulletin every Sunday. Our stewardship theme this year is to share in the inheritance, with a verse from Colossians, which is printed in your bulletin. May you be made strong with all the strength that comes from his glorious power, so that you may have all endurance and patience, joyfully giving thanks to God, who has called us to share in the inheritance of the saints in the light. Paul.
Can only make the print so big on my printer. Living in West Michigan for a number of years in the shadow of the Amway Grand Hotel, it was, I suppose, inevitable that I would someday be invited to a meeting to hear about a multi-level marketing opportunity. As I sat amongst the other invitees listening to the get-rich-quick spiel, and realizing I'd been duped into an Amway come-on, I grew surly. So when it came time to shout out what each of us would do with an extra $1,000 a month from our new Amway business, and after hearing people yell, "I'd buy a new boat, or a new car, or take a vacation," I yelled out, "I'd give more money to the church." Wow, talk about killing the moment. Needless to say, I was not invited back to the next meeting, which may have been one of the reasons I yelled that out. Truth was, I wasn't exactly lying. Since we got married, Krista and I have tried, with varying degrees of success, to make sure that our relationship to and with money remained healthy. That is not to say that money is not important. It's just not that important. I heard a sermon once entitled, "God Doesn't Want Your Money." Even more distressing to the diaconate was, in fact, that it was preached during Stewardship Month. The premise of the sermon was that the creator of the universe simply has no need or desire for our money. Preacher went on to remind us how offerings were made in the Old Testament, offerings of the firstborn and unblemished animals. What did the priests do with them? They burned them. The smell of the burning meat was presumed to be pleasing to God. Nota bene, I think our Christian apologetics should note when defending the faith that our God likes steak on the grill. Clearly, God made no use of such offerings. What these sacrifices did represent, however, was the giver's willingness to give, to part with and offer to God their first and their best. Simply put, giving wasn't a financial transaction or a requirement. Giving was worship. And if it was good and true, it was accepted by God as worship. So while God has no need for our money, we have a need to give, to willingly and cheerfully part with that which the world tells us we should hoard or spend on ourselves. Giving away stuff as important as money is completely irrational, but to do so shows God that he is in fact first. That's the place he demands to be, first. As the Apostle Luke says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The consistent exercise of giving conditions us to recognize our priorities. But this isn't a sermon on stewardship. The assignment was to talk about why Krista and I give joyfully. Well, first, giving joyfully requires that we be at peace with money, relying on God and not our bank accounts. Krista and I have learned to trust in God's grace and know that we rest in his care. I've told this story before, mostly because it reflects on what a great wife I have. But many years ago, I had that long drive home that some of you have experienced, the one that ends you telling your spouse you lost your job. As I sat at the kitchen table with my head in my hands, wondering how to provide for my family, Krista fixed me with her eyes, and she said, "Paul, you are not my provider. My Heavenly Father is my provider." Krista and I are able to give joyfully by learning to live within our means and to make giving a priority. We have indeed been richly blessed. But as I look back over the last 35 years of marriage, it seems that whenever I got paid, if the first check I wrote was to the church, the rest of the checks always seemed to get written. And early on, and hopefully not in the style of this morning's story of the Pharisee, we decided together to live on 90% of our income, giving a tithe or 10% to the church. It certainly made the math easier. And we give joyfully by trying to pass on charitable giving to our kids, again, with varying degrees of success. When they were young, we yearly gave Hannah and Nate a little bit of money, requiring that they pick and research a charity and then write a letter to the charity explaining why they were sending the money. Well, the thank you notes that they got in return made them joyful. Anyway, I don't have all the answers, and I am sure there are plenty of holes in my theological comfort blanket. And we still worry about money from time to time, especially now that my 401k is a lot more like a 201k. And we still crave the creature comforts. Krista wants a pool. And I have a strong yearning for more horses and maybe a barn to put them in. I suspect we'll compromise and get a pool. And I'm not here to tell you what to do. I get the fact that giving is personal. Maybe that's why when we used to have offering envelopes, you could lick them shut. But here's what I know. God must be first, or not at all. He will not abide second place. For me and my family, giving away that which would otherwise be the most important thing in the world helps us keep our real priorities straight. And doing it with a smile means that every time we write the check, we do so in joyful worship. Thanks for listening.